Okay, welcome back to this seminar of sessions with interesting private companies here at ABG. My name is Anders Hidborg. I'm the sector analyst for capital goods. Very happy to have Magnus Eriksson with me, founder and CEO of Echandia, which is a leader in battery and fuel cell energy storage for marine applications. So please, Magnus.
Thank you, Anders. Thank you for allowing me to present today. My name is Magnus Eriksson. I have a broad history within the Swedish Navy business. I've been working 20 years with submarine development, and in parallel started off Echandia some time back. And it's just quite recently that we feel that in general terms that the electrification market for maritime has really kicked off, and we're in a very good position to reap benefits from this development. And Echandia is taking a lead position in this electrification transformation, in where we see ourselves as market leader for high power batteries. So I will give you a presentation to what we stand for, what we offer today, and where we're heading into the future. Okay. So in general terms, we're part of this mega trend regarding electrification, and we're focusing on the maritime space. And it's very much cohesive development right now, where from regulatory space down to industrial level, everything points in the same direction. And to give you an example, EU presented the new climate plan this summer, a proposal for a new climate plan called Fit for 55. And for maritime, it's a huge thing because it's the first time in history where shipping is included in a tax redistribution system. So all ships entering into EU waters will be taxed if you're running on fossil fuels. And it will be to the benefit for battery-driven ships and fuel cell-driven ships. So this is one example of a key driver for us, and I think this will gain momentum for our business. Historically, Echandia has been focusing on battery electric ships alone, but we're now adding fuel cell to our offering. And we are in the space of being market leader for battery supplies to this electrification market. And the intention is to now take the same position in combination with batteries and fuel cells. Just to give you an idea about where we are in the transition, this is a DNV illustration from this summer, illustrating how far have we come in terms of the transformation in the shipping industry. And I don't know if I can't really use my pointer here, but in the left graph is a representation of the number of ships in the global fleet in operation today who are using some kind of alternative fuel. And you can see that the battery part is only 0.3% of the total fleet. So 0.3% of all ships sailing today have some kind of battery installation on board. And if you look in the rightmost graph, that represents the distribution of alternative fuels for ships currently being built. And you can see that the uptake there is about 3.85% of the number of vessels now being designed or built right now has batteries. And if we look at Norway as a prime example, as a lead example, leading the transformation into the green maritime domain, there's not one single ship being ordered in Norway right now without having a battery installation on board. So you can see the trends here with some lead examples where it's all about batteries, regardless of ship type. And you can see the division here on this the ships being built and the number of ships in operation. That is a clear trend. And if we assume that the rest of the world will follow Norway's example, there's a huge growth potential here. A lot of work to be done. That's the key takeaway there. So, as I explained initially, we feel that the winds are blowing in the right direction and Echandia is taking off as a business. We have a fundamental good offering in the market. We're competitive and we have won a number of globally renowned important contracts. We are involved in the establishment of the biggest fleet of electric commuter ships in India. It consists of almost 100 electric ships. We supplied for the 23 first ships, and hope to win the next phase of that contract, which consists of 55 electric ships. We have a good, long-lasting relationship with Damen shipyards, in where we have supplied for a number of electrification projects together with Damen, and we see an increased demand from customers such as Damen and global system integrators such as Siemens, for instance. We've also been rewarded with a number of awards recently. One is Ship of the Year award at the Maritime Awards in the Netherlands a few weeks ago. We won together with Damen Shipyards Ship of the Year awards for the Copenhagen project, which was an innovative first of a kind installation of a complete transport system, including automatic charging stations, etc. And a few weeks ago here in Sweden, we won an award for the E-Prize, which is one of the most renowned climate innovation awards, which was organized by Dagens Industri here in Sweden. So that was some kind of receipt of that Echandia is performing well and that what we're doing is sought after, so to say. Just a glance on how we categorize the market for maritime electrification. We are categorizing in two domains. One is pure batteries and one is fuel cell systems primarily. But when supplying fuel cells, that means for Echandia that we're also supplying batteries. The battery market is a pretty mature market, even though it has not reached the vast volumes as previously illustrated, but it's mature in the sense of how the ecosystem is working, the level of knowledge from the tender agencies and the end users. But comparing on the fuel cell side, it's very less mature, and it's pretty much dominated by a few pilot projects at the moment, but we see huge development efforts going on, primarily in Europe, to able to introduce on a large scale hydrogen production, distribution, and refilling stations for heavy duty transports. So that in parallel with how the general demand is evolving, we think the fuel cell market in a few years will pick up and be mature as the battery market is today. And over time, we do believe that the fuel cell market will by far dominate in terms of volumes. The fuel cells fills a gap where the batteries are not sufficient energy dense. For the large ships or for the high-speed ships, we need to utilize some other type of energy source, still being zero emission, and that's where the fuel cells comes in. So higher powers, higher energy throughput, that is where the fuel cell will have its marketplace. Illustrated by the type of ships you can see below the blue circles. Batteries typically for coastal ships, smaller ships, slow-going ships, workboats, etc. But for the large vessels, fuel cells needs to be utilized. And looking into what type of applications Echandia typically is supplying to, and what type of energy systems being used. Currently, we see batteries being used for electric propulsion for smaller vessels, up to mid-sized vessels, typically ro-ro Ropax ferries, where batteries are used for what's called zero-emission port calls. When entering into port, you need to switch over to 100% electric propulsion. That's a future requirement for most vessels. And then when being out at sea, you switch over to diesel generators or LNG generators for long-haul operations. And then when entering into the port area, you switch over to batteries. Or batteries can be used for what's called spinning reserve and peak shaving applications for the big cargo vessels, ocean-going vessels, or defense applications. Batteries are not necessarily used for electric propulsion, but to support the grid on board and supplying high power loads with energy. Looking a little bit into the future, as I said, then fuel cells will be gradually introduced into these applications, allowing for an increased time in operation when you operate under zero emission, or allowing for the smaller vessels to completely operate under zero emission, which is currently not possible. So this is something where the technology development will allow for an improved performance, you can say. I'll move on. Looking into products and solutions, I will not go into many details, but Echandia is providing battery systems and combined battery and fuel cell systems, where we are typically sourcing battery cells from vendors, strategic vendors, and integrating it into Echandia-owned developed battery modules with Echandia-owned developed battery management system, software, and safety systems. And we're only using one particular battery chemistry called lithium titanium oxide cells, which gives us a unique characteristic. It is by far the safest battery chemistry available in the maritime market. It is by far the most power-dense battery solution, which means that you can recharge and discharge at market-leading performance. And this is something that, that's a trend in the market, where requirements typically go in the direction of reducing charging time as far as possible without discriminating on safety performance. And here we have a unique position, what we offer in the market, both in terms of high safety and possibility to supply high power capacity. And typically what dimension a battery system is the power absorption or power delivery capacity and lifetime, and also the safety aspects. And combining these three type of requirements gives Echandia a unique position in the market, where we see that we have an enormous competitive edge towards the more typical NMC battery providers, where our footprint can be as low as 50% lower. Our battery installation can be up to 50% smaller than the competitor and still deliver the same performance. So it's a pretty astonishing offering, actually, comparing with what is out in the market. So that's the key takeaway. We also, because of some principal characteristics related to this titanium oxide battery, in terms of long-term stability and reliability, our battery system is typically as safe in day one in operation as 10 years down the line, while competing technologies do build up some internal uncertain characteristics internally in the battery cell, which means that the battery cell is increasing the risk exposure for the operator. You don't know how exactly, it's hard to measure and quantify the risk exposure in cheaper types of energy batteries. What we do know is that what we offer has the same principal characteristics all the way through life, which is a safety benefit and reliability benefit. So, looking into the value chain, whereas Echandia in this, I previously mentioned that we're not manufacturing battery cells or fuel cells ourselves, but integrating from cell level up to system level, including all the auxiliary system required. And in terms of fuel cells, there are more support systems required, air compressors, cooling systems, and power converters, etc., etc. So when integrating batteries and fuel cells, the system build is more complex, and we have a larger portion of value add from our side. And I do think that Echandia is, at the moment, the only company in the world who can provide high power batteries and fuel cells in this type of integrated combination. On the customer side, typically we supply to global system integrators that operate on a global scale, or global shipyard groups such as diamond shipyards. That's our prime sales channels or prime customers. But also putting in efforts in expanding regionally and locally around the world, in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, North America, etc. So that's a little bit on the value chain and how we're positioning it. And looking at our sales targets and how we see our development looking in the next few years, it's a steep increase in order intake and turnover. And one major growth factor for this is the growth into the larger ship segment, where the requirement for larger battery systems is obvious. So typically or historically we see for smaller vessels the requirement on the battery installation being quite modest or smallish, where we have a battery contract per ship, maybe in the order of magnitude, say 500,000 euros for a small ship, but we see typically at least an order of magnitude of 10 larger now per ship installation. So it's more like in the region of maybe 5 million euros worth of batteries per ship. So, and we see that there's a huge upkeep or increase in number of requests for larger vessels. So this will be the most important growth factor for us going forward. Typically, we're focusing on Europe and Asia. That's where the largest demand is at the moment, and we hope North America to pick up quickly. So, Echandia has been pioneering in this electrification of the maritime market for some years, and we've done some impressive projects all around the world. And we do have clear ambitions to strengthen our position in being able to be market leaders for all maritime application in supplying zero-emission solutions. And one example is this year we agreed with a Stockholm customer to deliver the biggest hydrogen system for the fastest hydrogen-driven passenger ferry in the world. This is a 30-knot hydrogen fuel cell-driven passenger ships, in where Echandia is supplying a 1.2 megawatt fuel cell system for this project. The project will be launched, or the boat will be launched in 2023, and we're supplying our system to the shipyard end of 2022. So this is a prime interesting example of yet another one of these world's first type of projects. To summarize Echandia, we're working in the field of an extremely rapid growing market for ESS solutions for the maritime space. We have a very interesting product pipeline. I have not explained so much about R&D and product roadmap, but we do have product launches coming out during 2022 and 2023 that will allow us to be the default supplier in the maritime market for zero-emission solutions. It will also allow us to increase our gross margins as we increase sales and improve product performance. We do see that our lithium titanium oxide battery system is the only allowable battery chemistry to be used on board, which is driving the number of requests in our direction. That's an interesting development or an interesting trend. We do work closely with our suppliers and manufacturers to further improve performance and improve our commercial competitiveness in terms of pricing. So not just technical performance, but also commercial performance is being improved as we go along. And preparing also to meet the market growth in terms of production capacity. So in all areas of our organization, we're improving capacity to take on this improved demand we see in the future. And we do have a number of substantial quotes out in the market, up for final negotiations in the next few weeks. So I'm very much looking forward to close this year on a happy ending with having met our sales target for this year. So thank you everyone for listening in, and I'll open up for Anders' questions.
Yeah, sure. That sounds like an exciting end to the year, certainly. We'll look forward to following the news there. Can we talk a little bit more about perhaps your position in the value chain and the barriers to entry and the competitive situation? You are obviously, a front runner here. You buy the battery cells, you design the modules, you design your battery management system. But what is there to stop one of the big systems integrators or a new competitor from basically doing the same and starting to eat away at the market?
Yeah, well, we do work with a number of system integrators that have their own battery production capacity in-house. That has not stopped them to request our battery solutions, because we give them a better competitive edge when they're using our batteries instead of their own. That's one example where our continuous effort to develop the products, fine-tune the products, and improve performance, price performance gives us, we give the customer a benefit by using our solutions. And then we're on the supply side discussing how to strengthen our strategic collaboration with certain strategic suppliers, which will be announced next year, how we can increase in a mutual interested setup, increase market exploration, and improve Echandia's integrity as a maritime supplier. So in all aspects, all over the value chain, we're increasing Echandia's long-term sustainable position, I would say. And we're doing it formally and informally in a few different ways. This is a vague answer to your question, but I'm certain that Echandia will come out stronger and stronger in the market, and there will be little room for competitors coming in trying to fill a similar role as Echandia. And it's also down to how we operate as a business. We're a Swedish innovative entrepreneurial business, and a lot of our success is reliant on that we have a mindset and we have an innovative climate in the business as such. And that is something that is not easily implemented in large businesses, on a global businesses, because it's so much down to the people involved. So that's another important factor, I would say.
Thank you. You mentioned just briefly in the beginning there the EU Fit for 55 initiative, for instance, and obviously the marine sector is a big polluter, you know, not just greenhouse gases, but also particles, etc., in city ferries. So, you know, can you give a few examples on how sort of public efforts really are driving sales for you? You know, how big do you expect that tailwind to become, you know?
No, but it will just, even if we currently feel a strong momentum, it will just put more fuel on the, or accelerate this transformation, I would say, because we are competitive. Electric ships are competitive even today with diesel based solutions, and then you have to be aware of that it's a bizarre tax situation, at least in Sweden and most places in Europe and around the world, where you operate a commercial vessel on diesel tax-free while you pay tax when operating on electricity. This will change and dramatically improve our position in the market and improve the business case to in our favor, I would say. So yeah, that's the today. Today it's still competitive, but will just be dramatically more competitive as going forward from here.
Great. I think we'll have time for one more perhaps, and just on your growth ambitions, you know, quite high, obviously, and so you know, you have a fairly capital light model. You assemble mostly, you know, so the capital spend here over the next 3 or 4 years, you know, if you can talk a little bit about, you know, the sales effort, you know, R&D, you know, how typically how will that be divided?
So even if we do not necessarily need to spend that much on production facilities, we need to improve production capacity, which means we need to invest in increased facilities and also some automated assembly robots, etc. So I would say about 1/3 of our capital need is directed towards product development and facility or production facility improvements. 1/3 for commercial efforts, marketing and sales. This is a pretty conservative marketplace where not everyone is present online. We need to have boots on the ground in various places of the world. Our customers are not on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it may be. So we need to combine digital marketing with traditional sales efforts, which is typically consisting 1/3 of our capital needs going forward. And scaling up like this requires us to have some working capital as well for being able to fund our product supplies until we got the final invoice paid from our customers. So I would say roughly 1/3 for product and production facilities, 1/3 for commercial operations, and 1/3 for working capital.
Right. Thank you. So best of luck with these negotiations for the rest of the year, and thank you so much for coming here to ABG and presenting.
Thank you. Thank you.
There will now be a few minutes break until the next presentation starts. Thank you.